Hello there. Today we will be working on pages 18 and 19 in our student notebook. This is a 2-page spread. You're going to get a page that has 2 different graphs, and you're going to cut each one out on the dotted lines of the perimeter of each of those. This is going to be the difference and the parts of bar graphs and line graphs, 2 of the most common types of graphs we will be using in science this year. So you're going to cut around the perimeter of each of those parts and then cut in between. So I have 2 graphs. One is going to go on 18 and one is going to go on 19. Let's do the bar graph on 18 and the line graph on 19. And we're going to be drawing and circling and highlighting things on these graphs. So you want to make sure that you're not using a whole lot of glue so that you can write and draw on your notebook and the graph to the best of your ability. So we are going to take a little bit of tape and just tape it down for today. And then I will go back later and add more tape in when I get a chance. So I'm going to do a little bit of tape in the back. And do that on the other graph as well. Like I said, I'll go over it again later with some more tape or glue. I'm going to need some markers and colored pencils, so I'm going to take them out of my pencil case. No Sharpies, just markers or colored pencils. Okay. I'm going to flip this around and you will see it at the end with everything written correctly. But for now, it's easier for me to write when I see it the right way. So we want to highlight the scale. Scales are the numbers on the side, in this case 0 to 5, that is being used. So on each graph, we are going to give it a nice yellow highlight or a nice yellow circle. We're going to draw an arrow to right above it and write scale used in pen. Scale used. Sometimes the scale is done by 2s, by 1, by 10, by 100. It just needs to be consistent. So in these cases, each block, each square is worth 1 unit. So when I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same on the bar graph and the line graph. Then we want to make sure that we understand that there's going to be and should be a title for the graph. So again, I'm going to use my yellow and I'm going to circle the words graph title and give a little arrow. And the graph title tells us what the graph is saying or showing. Tells us what the graph is communicating is another word. We are then going to take a different color and I'm going to circle the 0 on the scale. So here my colors might kind of overlap a little bit. I'm going to draw a little arrow to it and call it the origin. This is kind of where everything starts. Most of the time, graphs are going to start at 0, but sometimes you might want to zoom in and make it look bigger. So maybe your origin or your starting point is 100, and then everything goes up by 1,000. We also want to identify that there are two different parts to the graph. In these cases, you have something that I am measuring, the scale, and then different options, A, B, C, and D. When I did A, maybe it's a favorite color, one person said it. When it was B, it was two people. When it was C, it was three, and D was four. So there's axes titles, X and Y axes titles. And these are going to tell me what I was measuring or what I was looking at when I was measuring. So I'm going to take red for my x-axis. I'm going to circle the word x-axis title and draw a little arrow off to the side. And I'm going to describe that as the label for the x-axis shows what is being compared. We're going to do that on both graphs. The label for the x-axis shows what is being compared. And I'm going to use a blue for my y-axis title. And it's the same thing. Instead of it being compared, though, this label is going to show what was being measured. This label for the y-axis shows what is being measured. Now we actually have the data, right? In a bar graph, our data is shown in these bars. In a line graph, it's shown on a line plot. So the terms are used a little bit differently when describing the data. So I'm going to try to use green, and I can go over and just kind of like give it a nice brief little color. I could always go back and color it in a little bit more. And then for the line graph, I'm going to put a nice big circle around the dot on B, and I'm going to draw a line like between the two data points between C and D. Highlight that line. And we're going to describe all of these parts in just a minute. So starting with the bar graph, what we showed in the color is data. So I'm going to write that inside of bar A, and they're called bars. So above A, I'm going to write bars. And I'm going to show kind of like arrows that they are jumping from point to point. I'm also going to write a little note that bar graphs compare things between different groups. Group A are students who think green is their favorite color. Group B is people who think blue is. C is people who think red is. And D is people who think yellow is their favorite color, right? Different groups of people, and the information isn't the same. Maybe the groups of people are the same number, but in this case, they're all different groups with different responses. Over for the line graph, I want to show that that green circle on B is called a data point. So I'm going to just draw a little arrow and write data point. And then The green highlight line, we're just going to say line to connect data points. And again, we're going to write a little note that line graphs are used to show change over time. So instead of our line graph showing groups of people who like certain colors, it might be that as you get older, your favorite color changes. Maybe when you were 2, your favorite color was pink, or 1, your favorite color was pink. When you were 2, your favorite color was green. When you were 3, your favorite color was blue. And 4, your favorite color was yellow, right? It could also mean that as I went up in speed, the faster I went, the farther I drove. I drove 1 mile at point A. I drove 2 miles at point B. I drove 3 miles at point C, 4 miles at point D, right? Different locations. It could be that as I went at speed 1, I had gone whatever A miles might have been, and at level 2 speed, I was at B miles. So they compare different things. We're going to use these types of graphs in our research, in our experiments often. So this is going to be a handy dandy reference for us as we begin to analyze our data that we collect throughout the school year. So I'm just going to go back and kind of color in these bars a little bit more. But I will catch you in the next video where we will be moving into our first unit with our student readers. So we'll be doing some different types of notes in our notebook. So I'll catch you in the next one.